happy to be here, you guys. My name is Jennifer Zick. I am moderating today's fine panel. I'm so excited that all of the brilliant Smarketing friends I invited to join me said yes. So we're going to have a great conversation here today. I'm going to ask all of our panelists to introduce themselves with a little bit of context on what makes them, what brings them a perspective around sales and marketing. If somebody can chase someone down about the music, that'd be super helpful. All right, we want to ixnay the music, may, if it's possible. All right, so I just want to start by giving a shout out to the people that make not only Twin Cities Startup Week possible and the amazing staff that backs that up, but the people that are making this particular event possible. So I want to start by appreciating WeWork. Thank you, WeWork, for sharing your space with all of us today. Yes. I also want to give a shout out to our friend Dan at Blue Key Media. Who they specialize in video production, and we have a lot of friends who would love to hear today's content who couldn't be here in person today, so it'll be recorded and shared and available to anybody who wants to watch a recap. So thank you, Blue Key Media, for that. And then is my friend Jen Gilhoy in the room with Spark Track Consulting? Yes, in the back. Jen is actually part of Authentic Brands' Ally Network of Partners, and she specializes in event strategy and event recapping. So she's going to be putting together a recap of our discussion today, which will be another fine way for us to share the learnings of today's event. So again, thank you to everybody who made today's event possible, and to my panelists and esteemed friends. Thank you for being here and sharing your wisdom and experiences. So I'm just going to ask our panelists to spend a minute or two to introduce themselves and provide some context around their experiences in sales and or marketing. And I'll just start off by introducing myself, and we'll run down the line. I'm Jennifer Zick, and I'm the CEO and founder of Authentic Brand. We help high potential businesses reach their next level growth through marketing traction. And we provide that marketing traction through fractional CMO services and coaching, a simple set of tools and great strategic leadership that really helps them build strong muscles in their marketing department and align with sales to achieve revenue results. So that's Authentic Brand. And my background, most of you are familiar with Magnet 360, a local business that specializes in Salesforce. I had the privilege of being the first full-time employee with that business back in 2001 and spending 13 years in sales leadership, marketing, and marketing leadership roles, building that brand, and then have collected other sales and marketing experiences along the way. So this is a topic I'm clearly passionate about and excited to be here. So Amy, I'm going to hand it to you.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Amy Green, and I am Vice President of Marketing at Code42. I think most of you are probably familiar, but it's a Minneapolis-founded, Minneapolis-headquartered data security tech company located downtown. I've spent, most of my career in marketing leadership, but I started in sales, and I've also had sales leadership experience. And I'm passionate about this topic, because I've seen where it works when sales and marketing are aligned, how beautiful it can be, and I've seen how detrimental it can be when they're not aligned. So great to see you all today.
We're going to share.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Knutson. I'm co-founder and CEO of TeamGenius. Is that better? We basically are helping youth sports organizations change the way they do player evaluations. So tryouts, camps, player feedback and development programs, all still done largely using paper and spreadsheets, which comes with a lot of problems. And we have a web and mobile app that streamlines that process, digitizes the data, and allows you to do a lot of cool things with it. Prior to doing TeamGenius, I was at Thomson Reuters for about 7 years. I started there as an intern in marketing and worked my way through different roles there, mostly digital, and then got into product management for a while. Had a great experience there, learned a lot, but my kind of dream was always to do a startup. So I remember scratching my head for years trying to come up with an awesome idea of my own that was worthy of going all in on. Never had one, so I decided I'd try to find someone else with a good idea who needed sales and marketing help to go to market. So I did just that, quit my job in 2016, and starting with just my co-founder and I, selling, marketing, building the product, getting customers, all of that, and then now growing it up to 11 employees currently and building that sales and marketing from the ground up. So a lot of cool experiences related to that, and I'm excited to share it with you.
Hi, can you hear me? I'm Ellie Raider. up for the last 7 years, and up until about a week ago, I was at GoKart Labs. Last week, it was announced that our company was acquired by West Monroe Partners. But at GoKart Labs, most recently, I was the vice president of sales and marketing. And I stepped into that role primarily because I was the most obsessed with understanding our customers' needs as they learn to build digital products and services. So I made the most sense to help do sales and marketing and grow our client relationships. And I will be doing pretty much the same thing at the new company this week and beyond.
Hey everybody, how are you? Happy Startup Week. I'm Mickeli, Bedore. So I've been selling. I've been a salesperson for most of my adult life, selling big ticket technology products and platforms for companies like IBM, NetSuite, Oracle, so on and so forth. And in parallel to that, I've launched a handful of companies. Most recently, a media company that produces coffee enclosures, which some of you guys were just at. So as a professional, I'm a salesperson, and as I hate to say entrepreneurship as a hobby, but I just love it so much that it's hard to talk about it as a job because it isn't. I lead most of our marketing, so I kind of see from both sides, and I'm really excited to field questions and talk to you about this exciting journey that is sales and marketing.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys. I think I have the loudest microphone and the loudest voice, so I'm going to try to share the microphone too. Maybe we lean on this one if that one doesn't turn up. So I think hopefully what you saw in the experiences and backgrounds of our panelists is that I really wanted to make this a diverse perspective panel with folks who'd had experience on the sales side and sales management, marketing and marketing management for startup all the way through fast-paced growth, acquisitions and all the fun that goes with that, and large enterprise. So the thing about Startup Week that's so special is that everybody here is growth-minded. But all of you are at different phases in that growth. Some of you are considering launching a business. Some of you are early stage in building a business. Some of you are independent. Some of you are established businesses looking at next level growth. And so we really want today's conversation to give insight into all of those various stages of growth and why the concept of Smarketing, which we're going to define as we go, is so essential and how differently it looks at various stages in the business. So are we all on board for that ride today? Awesome. All right, so the term Smarketing. I would guess that about half of you in this crowd absolutely hate words that combine other words to create mashup words. Raise your hand if you hate mashup words. It's an abomination. Okay. I understand. I feel much the same. But it's a word. And I think Wikipedia does a really crappy job of defining it. So I'm going to ask our panel for help because here's what Wikipedia says. Smarketing is the process of integrating the sales and marketing processes of a business. Lots of process. It sounds a lot of fun. But I'm just going to walk down the line here and ask, what does Smarketing mean to you? How would you define and contextualize that within your current role in organization?
Yeah, I would say it's simply two organizations within a bigger organization that have similar goals, similar needs. They're focused on the customer, and they're on the same page, and they get it, and they have a mutual respect and understanding.
Yeah, I think it's all about empathy between the two functions. I don't think I've ever met a salesperson who didn't think they could do marketing better than the marketing team, and probably goes the other way too. So I think finding ways that those roles can understand the challenges and the complexities of what the other people do, and I think we'll talk a little more about that.
Do you want me to use the loud one or the quiet one? Let's try it. Can you hear me? Oh, this mic is much louder. Here, Jen, you can use the quiet one.
Hello? Yeah, this is my mic now.
Problem solved. Okay, I think it's I don't actually say Smarketing, I'm sorry. But I think it's the synthesis of the sales team and the marketing team understanding each other, understanding what each other needs to get done in service of finding the best fit for the clients and the prospects. So understanding what the customer is looking for, what the prospect is looking for, understanding how to start conversations and create assets that will lead that prospect or that customer to have conversations with the sales team so they can understand how you can solve their problems. And I think it's really that simple.
Yeah, I think the term Smarketing, if you were to look it up today, should say duh. And underneath that, it's about time. Because, in my opinion, sales and marketing, those two verticals, if you will, or whatever, have been working together for a long time. And I look at sales and I look at marketing as, I'm a visionary, and there are integrators, if you guys are tracking traction. Could I do some of the integrator stuff? Sure. Am I best at it? No, I am not. That's why integrators do it. It's the same with sales, I think. Could a salesperson market? Maybe. Could a marketing person sell? Probably if they had to. But we gravitate towards what we're best at. Do you know what I mean? And so I think it's about time that we kind of respect that and say, marketing person sells. They just do it through content and assets. A salesperson markets. They just do it with their mouths and promises that they attempt to keep. So to me, it's always been around. We're just starting to talk about it finally.
So Mickeli, while you have the mic, I want to turn another question back to you specifically. You've got a really interesting vantage point into this topic because of how you introduced yourself. You are simultaneously doing large enterprise tech sales and building the marketing and sales around a smaller startup kind of a brand. So tell us about how you managed to keep your hats on straight and like what you've learned about sales and about marketing by playing both roles.
Yeah, well, where's Patrick? ADHD. ADHD is what makes this all possible. Amen? Anybody else? I believe that with all my heart. But anyway, I think I never had to do the marketing in corporate sales. And I was an entrepreneur until about 5 years ago. I mean, give and take, right? But I actually took it serious. So I was one of those people, Chris, that said, I could do marketing. Well, I'll tell you what, it took me a lot of work. And I realize now that I respect our marketing team at NetSuite more than I've ever respected anybody, to write content that speaks. I mean, you're basically selling without ever picking up the phone or emailing. Think about that for 1 second. People are drawn towards whatever it is you offer because of that. It's amazing. And I've worked very hard to become skilled at that. That was one of the things that I refused to delegate, because I was like, if I can become decent at marketing, I'll become epic at sales. And then if and when I ever decide to go back to a spot like a NetSuite, which I have, I can really work with those people because I can speak their language a little bit more, and my empathy for their job is so much higher, and vice versa. I think I can share my struggles as a salesperson, and together, cohesively, we share a mission and we work towards each other, versus trying to silo yourself and talk down to them and ask for stuff that you don't understand because you don't understand their job. I think it's given me a huge vantage point, but it was specifically something that I forced myself to at least study and learn. Now, operations, on the other hand, I happily delegate.
Nice. Chris, I want to turn a similar question over to you. You have a unique vantage point because I first met you when we were both in marketing roles, right? That was the career track. And then you joined a startup where you maybe thought you were doing marketing. But what have you learned in building a startup? What does Smarketing really mean in the early stages of a business?
Well, yeah, I mean, when you're starting, those functions are often handled by the same people. So I think as a founder, marketing background, dive into a startup, and I immediately became a salesperson. And, as a founder of a startup, the first thing you need to do once you have some semblance of a product is sell. And so, I picked up the phone and started making calls, and I was like, I know I need to do this. It's uncomfortable. I've never done it before, but I have to do it. So I think one thing that, you have to do some of those things yourself as a founder before you try to build a team to do those things. Big mistake a lot of startups make, I think, really early on is they go out and they just hire people to do all this stuff, all the different functions, without really taking the time to try to learn it themselves. But you need that direct feedback early on. Yeah, and as you go, one thing we've done too is this kind of happened naturally, where rather than just a weekly sales meeting, which we still call it a sales meeting, a weekly sales meeting, but really it's a growth meeting. We have marketing represented, we have customer success, we're sharing, we're all going for the same goals. We're trying to keep customers, find new ones, and there's just really amazing things that happen when those teams start sharing every week. Whether it's here's an idea we've been thinking about, this copy isn't quite right. Here's a way we could try to ask for happy customers for more referrals, all sorts of things that really happen at a small scale. And I'd love to, I'm excited about the challenge to try to scale that as we grow, because that's, I think, the hard part. Get a bigger team and you try to maintain some of that stuff is difficult.
Absolutely. And though I'm the moderator, what you said spoke to me, and I'll weigh in a little bit with an experience from my own business. So Authentic Brand is a 2.5-year-old business. And I came out of having built businesses from the ground up, but having built them successfully, I admit that I started my business with a champagne appetite for talent, but a Pabst Blue Ribbon budget for execution, right? So also we run on EOS, on Traction, on the Entrepreneurial Operating System, and so feeling very motivated to grow my business with focus and intent, I thought I'm going to delegate and elevate until I am only the visionary of this business, right? And the first way I should do that is to hire for the things that I would do naturally, which is the sales and marketing side of the business. And I had to learn the hard way that really I need to live in that space, and I need to do that because where the resources of the business are today, and for where I can best contribute to the growth of my business, it's by staying there for a while and building that out. So, yeah. So, Amy, question for you in terms of, you're in a more established business that's had an amazing growth and success story in this market. I'm sure that the sales and marketing organizations have evolved a lot, even in the time that you've been there. One piece of connective tissue between sales and marketing is this concept of sales enablement. Does sales enablement have a formal role in your organization, or how does that play between the roles between sales and marketing?
We have a function that is labeled sales enablement that's not in marketing, but I do view absolutely me and my team and our whole marketing team's job as enabling the sales team. I learned early on in my career, I had a great boss when I started as a marketing manager who said, if you're not serving the customer, you better be serving someone who is. And that's just stuck with me. So yeah, our job is to help them tell a great story in the market, make sure we're giving them tools that are customer tested, not just a bunch of corporate jargon, but does it really work? Our job is also, I'm also a big fan, I use the term internal marketing. So you're rolling out something new, a new product, a new program. Yes, it's important you nail it for them so that they can get it right with the customer, but your first job is to sell them and to capture their hearts and minds and to make sure that they feel confident and they feel enabled and they feel like they can go out and tell a great story. It starts with them. And I've just learned as a marketer, yes, I do these things because I believe in partnership. I think I'm collaborative by nature. But I also know that as a marketer, if I don't do those things, I'm not going to be successful. And my team won't. So I just, in my heart, believe, and that it flows through into your everyday actions.
Thank you. All right, Ellie, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Sounds great.
I think for those of us who have not sat in both seats, it can be hard to know where to start with that empathy worldview, right? For me, I was in sales and sales management before I became a marketer and then a marketing leader. And so I've sat in both seats and I feel like I know what it takes. But for those in the room who are currently on the sales side of the organization and have never been a marketer, what advice would you give, starting with Ellie, but I'd love to hear from all of you, on if I'm a seller who wants to collaborate more closely with marketing and really build strong relationship and collaboration there, what advice would you give to me? Where do I start with that? If my organization perhaps doesn't have that infrastructure, what can I do to activate that collaboration?
Sure. If I'm a seller, invite the marketing team out into the field with me. So bring somebody to your next pitch. And that can be risky. You can bring them to an existing client. It doesn't have to be a brand new prospect that you're going out to pitch, but get them involved. I've also done shadow calls where we were on a video conference and I had people from the marketing team sit in and just hear how we talked about ourselves, because it's not enough for them to understand how we talk about ourselves to prospects and clients, but how they talk back. And they need to hear that firsthand. So until they hear the questions that your customers have and really start to internalize that and start to create assets and materials that speak to that and reach out to that person and capture their interest, it's not going to be as successful of a partnership.
Great. Anybody else want to take a stab at that one? What advice would you give to a seller who wants to strengthen relationship with marketing?
I'm going to sound redundant to Ellie, but if I'm a startup, I'm taking those two groups and I'm putting them together in one room so they could listen to each other. I don't know how else you would do that, in my opinion. We've never done anything other than that, and it has worked for the empathy bit, for the respect bit, but also there's two people now that are, so marketing is creating assets based on data analysis at the best of their ability. The other folks, the sales folks, should be in the field or at least having daily conversations. So together, when you take that data, live field data, study data, and you put it together, to me, those are assets that really speak because they're live, they're up to the minute. You know what I mean? If you're an enterprise, I'm with you. What I like to do is I want the marketing folks on my calls. They're not going to, unfortunately, they don't travel a lot with me, but we want them on the calls, so we'll always chime them in. We always CC them. I always put them on everything. And I do it for the learned experience, but I selfishly, one of the reasons I do it is I want them to know what it's like to feel a win. They don't get quota relief on it. I do, but I'll buy them a nice bottle of wine or whatever, but I want them to feel what a win feels like, and I want them to feel what a failure feels like. So when we do our QBRs, which I also invite them to, quarterly business reviews, I want them to be sitting there so we can share the excitement, and we also can feel the burn when we get roasted because our quota, we're far off from our quota. To me, that just builds a synergy and a family, and then you'll fight for each other.
Love that.
Right?
Love that.
Yeah, quick addition. I think in a lot of organizations, marketing is just viewed as a sales support function. I think that's a huge mistake and a big missed opportunity. So I think any way the sales team can bring marketing in early on, get feedback on a lot of things, tell them what content would be helpful too. I think marketing traditionally is very good at creating maybe product-focused content, very feature, benefit type stuff, but often misses an opportunity to provide more kind of trend analysis, more selling the problem type content. This is especially true from my perspective in an early startup where we often talk about that we're selling why anything before why us. We're actually competing against doing nothing more so than a competitor, and that's true at all levels on some level, but. That's a huge opportunity, I think, for marketing to really win over salespeople, is that if they can give them the tools, whether it's stats, it's infographics, it's research, it's things that can help them quantify that problem and help those prospects realize it's actually much bigger than they think and why it's worth solving.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd just add, we know as marketers, we do want your feedback. We want to know what's working and what's not. I think framing it though in a productive way. So sometimes we'll hear, oh, this is terrible, or everyone hates it. Is it one person or is it a lot? Just helping us, again, we want that feedback. I think the other thing too is we tend to get a lot of really specific requests from salespeople, like, oh, I need this, very specific piece or thing. And start with like, what are you trying to solve or what are you trying to accomplish? I think we can help you a lot better if we understand that versus just going right into the thing.
Absolutely. I loved what you said, Chris, about a couple things. You said most sellers will think that they're better at marketing than marketing, and that in a lot of organizations, marketing becomes just the support mechanism for sales, the order taker for sales. A lot of the work that we do at Authentic Brand is with the small, established but growing businesses, the 5 to 50 or upward to $100 million business that has usually a decently established sales organization and maybe one or two marketers, but not a strategic, they've never had a strategic marketing leader. And a lot of the work that we do with them through our marketing traction process is helping them understand the role of marketing as just as a strategic partner in growing the business, right? And so the way we bring small businesses together is through quarterly workshops and weekly meetings that actually bring, it's not just a marketing meeting, it's a revenue meeting. We think of the revenue organization and bringing, in a small business, that's often the founder or CEO or owner, together with the head of sales, together with the head of marketing, to really talk about what are the major objectives of the business, because otherwise it's very easy for marketing to always be put on its heels as the order takers, or what we refer to lovingly as like marketing becomes the junk drawer of the organization. Like, oh, do you need a lunch setup for the all hands meeting? That's marketing. Somebody need a logo on something? That's marketing. Like, how much of this is driving revenue? Can we just get together in a room as business leaders and talk about the business growth objectives? So I want to ask a question about the junk drawer syndrome, or the shiny object, or what we also call random acts of marketing. How have you successfully, give me maybe some fun stories of where you've seen that play out to the detriment of the business, random acts of marketing, or how you've seen that take shape, or maybe how you've seen it be filtered in order to be collecting ideas from across the organization and activating them strategically. What suggestions might you have in that regard? Amy?
Yeah, I've found that those kind of random requests and being the recipient frequently happen when sales doesn't understand what your plan is. So I've always been a believer, like, share. You don't need to share every detail or every financial or business case, but let them know consistently what you're doing and let them know what's coming their way and what their role is in it and what they need to do to take advantage. I've just found when you are proactive, those questions tend to happen in the absence of good information. So, just be transparent, and it really, it's about ongoing, just ongoing daily communication. I know that seems very basic, but I've just found that makes a huge difference, so that you're out there and they have insight into what you're doing. And I think being honest too about what works and what doesn't. I think the other thing I've learned is, taking credit, right? Like, when we have big wins, I never will just, it's because we gave you the marketing lead. Well, no, you had a huge role in that too, right? So, just being really thoughtful about that, because it really does take both parties.
I'll just add one thought to this one, which is I'm a believer in variable compensation for marketing. And I know it's very difficult to implement, but I do think that forcing function of having skin in the game and compensation tied to delivering, whether it's MQLs or maybe even better sales accepted leads or qualified leads, I think that's a way that sort of aligns the organization. Everyone's responsible for results and has a good portion of their pay tied to it. And that's one way to say, if your compensation's tied to something, you're not going to do stuff that doesn't matter.
I'll tell you a story. It starts out sad, but it ends happy. In my first year as the head of sales and marketing, I lacked confidence. I had never run marketing before. I had run sales before. I was good on that side. I lacked confidence in my ability to just decide things, and I thought I had to get everything approved, and I thought I was trying to make everybody happy, and it sucked. That's how we ended up. Jennifer knows, she was right there with me. We ended up becoming the junk drawer and trying to make everybody happy and doing all of these things like coordinating lunch for the all hands. I don't think it was called that. Doing a lot of internal things and a lot of things that weren't driving revenue. And I made a decision that my second year in the role wasn't going to be like that. So I worked really hard to create a strategy for the next year, and I presented it to the leadership team, and I said, here's what the sales and marketing team is going to do this year, and if there's anything that's not in here, it means we're not going to do it. So go figure out how to go do it yourself. See you later. And I went and did that strategy, and it was great. And they were thrilled with the focus, because we were super focused on what we wanted to get done. We executed on our strategy. We drove much better results, and we were all happier. And all those other things that needed to get done found a way to get done elsewhere in the organization. So,
Ellie, would you say that the leaders of the organization were actually relieved and thrilled to just have you come forward with a plan and take a stand, and so that they felt like they didn't have to come up with the next shiny thing?
They really were.
Yeah.
And it felt awesome. But my first year, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I just didn't have the confidence, and then I figured it out, and it was great.
That's great. I don't have much to say on the enterprise front, just because I think it's a huge pain in the ass to get that rolled up, and really at the end of the day, they're not going to listen to little old me. But at the startup front, I could tell you, Shiny was my middle name. Just ask my wife. She is the marketing design person for at least this company, Coffee and Closers. And I can tell you, someone said plan. I think it was you, Jennifer. I will tell you right now, we have done it without a plan, and we've done it with a plan, and it is night and day. And I don't know how you do it without one. I can tell you how to do it without one. But with one, you have assets that actually pair up with, kind of the strategic movements that you're going to put forth. And now that's how we execute. I don't ask her, I don't ask anybody on our team to do anything without why is this happening. We always ask this question, why? Why am I producing this? Because it used to be we'd get a request for something that we don't even do. I'm like, yeah, we got to add that. Definitely got to add that into our marketing bits. Yeah. And then when someone would challenge and say, but we don't do that. Let's figure it out. That's not a way to run a company, So a plan, I think, is the key word. I love that.
Well, and here's the other reality about a fast-growing or an early-stage business. you can have a 12-month plan, and in month 3, something can change dramatically, right? And so you also need the space to be nimble and responsive while staying focused. And so some of the work that we do with our clients is, yes, you need a 12-month plan with a budget, with targets, with something you're focused on, backed up by the story you're planning to bring to the market because you've listened to customers and you have a strong hypothesis on where you can start with it. But your plan needs to be agile, too. You need to have a review cycle where you continue to bring, for us, we do that through quarterly marketing traction meetings, which again are more revenue traction. Bring everybody who has a voice and potentially a vote to the table, lay out everything that you've learned in the last 90 days and everything that you see in the next 90 days, and then actively make the decisions about what's still in plan or what might need to change, right? Like, in any business of any size, no company has unlimited time, money, or human resources. And so really, having a plan is kind of the filter through which you decide actively what's not in plan so that your resources are pointed toward what could be the most meaningful and likely to hit target, right? So speak to me a little bit about, in the roles that you hold today and the people that you collaborate with as leaders in your business, how do you go about the process of deciding what's in plan, how does it get resourced, who has a voice, who has a vote, how do we make that decision?
For me, it's always started with just what are the revenue targets? What are the revenue or customer growth targets? Profit targets are in there too, but starting with that and, understanding again what the lead numbers are, getting alignment on what the assumptions are for what we're going to need to support that plan. And then, really bringing forward, recommendations, again, being as data-driven as you possibly can and based on past experience, but bringing forward, the recommendations really to drive that and getting that buy-in. I think over time, hopefully you build enough trust where your sales partners will trust you to bring in the right number of leads, but that can take time. But it's really that simple. I do listen to sales. I will get great ideas from the sales team sometimes. And again, just kind of over time, you start to pick up, patterns of things that might be effective. But again, I think, agreeing to that and then, executing against that. But I started in my current role, I stepped into a situation where there's a lot of finger pointing going on, and it just does no one any good at all. So just started a weekly, let's go through the funnel and what are we seeing? Let's start with the data. Let's dig into some of these leads. And, and they learned a lot. I learned a lot. But it was just this constant, it's not a one and done. It's a constant. You've got to be fully committed to that ongoing dialogue and ongoing commitment to improvement.
Oh, so for me, it was focus on our strategy. We have a very specific target, a very specific kind of client that is best for us to work with. And we had a list. It was kind of a fit score. And if the client or if the prospect didn't fit that, I didn't spend time on it. No offense if you don't fit the criteria, but we have an ideal client, and I spent time on those, and I became very unpopular for saying no to spending time on things that people really wanted me to spend time on. But I needed to focus all of my time and effort on what drove the most growth and what was the best fit for our business. So I had to say no a ton. They hated it for a while, and then they appreciated it. So you got to be the bad guy a little bit, but just focus on the strategy, and it'll get you there.
Discipline is incredibly difficult with a small startup. One of the things that happens is you go into the market with something, probably works pretty well. Hopefully you start selling it, and then you start talking to investors and have all these ideas for, hey, we could create this other product that's related and go sell it over here. We could, for us, we focus really closely on clubs and associations. There's definitely an opportunity in high schools and scouting and recruiting and all these different areas, but there's just an incredible amount of discipline that's required to make sure that we nail a niche, right? If we don't do something better than anybody, we're not going to make it. So we need to do that thing really, really well, and then there is time to expand, and that will come. But in the early days, it's really tempting. Every investor meeting, have you guys thought about this? It's like, well, yes, we have, but we got to double down on what's working and keep doing that. There's too much marketing or too much opportunity with what we're already good at to move on to something else and risk diluting ourselves too much.
Yeah, I love that. For us, we're big. The market kind of guides our marketing, if that makes sense. We love to ask. We've made pivot changes over and over. Even at BBG, when we went from what we were doing to being a fractional VP of sales kind of outfit, the market told us that. It was so clear when you actually pay attention. And I've had this data used against me so many times, and I'm like, I've got a great idea. Let's call ourselves, or let's do this. And it just, when you look at the data, what the market's telling you, it's a lot easier when you just listen. You got to have your backbone, and you got to have your structure. Obviously, if you don't offer tire changing services, and you're a marketing agency, that's probably not something you should offer. But that plan, mixed with what the market's telling you, it ends up guiding all of your marketing materials, and then it speaks to them in the way that they want to be spoken to.
It's all so true, and we preach this gospel all the time at Authentic Brand. Like, if you're trying to be all things to all people, you're nothing to anybody, right? And particularly in a small business, I find with a lot of the founders and CEOs and sales leaders that we work with that have never had a strategic marketing partner to challenge their focus, they're very afraid of losing revenue opportunity by getting focused, because they say, this widget we sell can be sold into these 15 verticals. This product that we offer can be sold in any geo region. Well, just because it can doesn't mean you should. When you put your limited resources behind a wide number of targets, they have very small impact. If you put your limited resources behind a couple ideas or a singular idea, you can get a lot more impact and a lot more mind share and credibility. And so I like to talk to our clients about how, think about a baseball game and the strike zone. The strike zone is really small. Like, put all your efforts into pitching into the strike zone. Get your sales and marketing aligned in a really small window. But yeah, be ready to catch something that comes in that you also can field. That doesn't mean you have to say no to a sales opportunity that comes walking in with a budget and wants to buy from you. You can still say yes to opportunistically, but when you're thinking about how you go to market with extreme focus and clarity. My 2 cents. All right. So let me ask now, from each of your vantage points, what do you think marketers want most in the world from sales? If they could have one thing.
What marketers want from sales, or what sales?
From sales. What marketers want from sales?
Yeah, I think, well, we know that what sales wants from marketing are 2 million perfectly qualified leads, right? I know that.
More at-bats per day.
Per day, yes, per day, and have them ready to buy that day. No, again, I think just I think an understanding, again, of what, some of the challenges we face, and same goes the other way, understanding of challenges they face. I think I'm trying to say, I think they want, I'm sorry, you said sales.
Okay.
What sales wants from
marketing
marketing wants from sales. Sorry, I'm going to blame my cold medicine. Just, again, a true partnership. I think honest feedback, ongoing feedback on what's working for them. I think an understanding, too, that, you might think, well, why can't we just whip up this campaign, right? Why can't we just start this? And just knowing, there's a lot that goes into just even putting together a landing page, right? So you can't just, turn on a dime with everything. But again, I've just found when you're proactive, you find those wins. When they see that your programs are delivering, a lot of those kind of ad hoc requests go away.
I'll add that I think feedback is really key. I think marketing, I've met a lot of passionate marketers, and they have really good ideas and they want to produce things, and I feel like a lot of times that gets dumped over to sales, and the marketing team doesn't really know what happens. They just hear the leads are bad or something like that. So I think marketing really wants a fair chance. If the leads are bad, they want to understand why, and take the time to refine what is good, what isn't good, and just get that feedback back to marketing. They want to be respected as a growth driver of the company, not, again, just that sales support function. That's I think the wrong way. It's a component of marketing in many cases, but it's not the only thing. And I think that's what'll get marketing people excited, is when they see they're really contributing to numbers.
I think it's a couple things. Top of the list, appreciation and understanding of the work that they do, and acknowledgement of the time that it takes to do it well. Second, I think, is a little bit of foresight about what the clients will be expecting next. So rather than, I'm going on a sales pitch tomorrow, and I need the following assets by 6 o'clock tonight, it's, I think my client in a few months is going to be ready for this. Can we start working on some materials to get ready for that? So having, like, and as a salesperson, really, you should be thinking about that anyway and bringing your marketing person as a collaborator along so that you can produce good materials together instead of saying, can you give me a whatever asset by the end of the day? Because that's just not a good way to be a partner. And I think just continually keeping that feedback loop going. So I used this asset, it resonated. These are the ways it resonated. This is what really captured the client's attention. Or I used this and it didn't really land. Here's how can we think of some ways to make it better? So really, truly collaborating and appreciating each other's work.
I love it. What you're speaking into there is what comes to mind for me, which is just realistic expectations. Yeah. Realistic expectations. Because what I talk with my clients is, they think they're ready to start marketing today. When they finally reach that point of readiness and they've never had a marketing leader, it's because they want sales today. They really needed to start 2 years ago, right? Especially in the B2B context where the sales cycle is often a year or more, building awareness and readiness for the conversation takes at least a year leading up to that for all the touches and engagement and brand awareness building. So whatever marketing results you want to hit your revenue in terms of like qualified pipelines, start 2 years prior. And be realistic with the integrations that have to go into even something that seems like you should just be able to spin it up. Meanwhile, as a startup, sometimes you really can, with good collaboration and communication, just spin something up and get going. But I think, if I had a vote, I would eradicate the language about between sales and marketing for like low-hanging fruit and quick at-bats. You want that, then I'm just going to spend a lot of money and hope and pray that something sticks, right? That's not strategic marketing. So realistic expectations, the appreciation of the different roles and the jobs that we play, and marketing as the long game that creates a canvas over the right now activities of sales, right? Speaking of which, I want to pivot. I have one more question I want to tee up to this panel, and then I want to open it up for audience Q&A because I want you guys to have a chance to pick these beautiful brains. So here's what I want to talk about. There is a changing interaction particularly in B2B, in the customer journey life cycle, right? It used to be, and I've been in sales and marketing for 20 years, it used to be that marketing really was all about build a brand that gets us at bats, we hand a lead to sales, and sales takes it from there and owns the customer journey. The digital world and our interaction with content, thought leadership, and a brand at every experience in that journey has changed that. And yet I find in the work that we do that businesses remain structured as marketing over here in lead gen and demand gen, and sales over here in closing and winning deals and managing the customer account management, right? I would love to hear how this plays out in your organizations or what your philosophy is about marketing as the curators of brand and experience, having a balanced budget and role to not only create demand, but also provide the underpinnings to help retain and grow customer relationships and nurture that advocacy and support the sellers in growing that really valuable relationship. Like, how do you see that playing out in your current organizations between, is marketing funded for anything other than demand gen? Do they get to support customer life cycle too?
Yes, in fact, that's been a big shift for us this year, and where I've been spending a lot of my time is on post-sale. Now, again, there's still a demand function within your current customer base, right? Especially when you're, like we are, trying to shift to be a security company and reach new buyers within your customer base. But yes, we are absolutely, and you guys know the stats, right? It's 3 to 5 times more expensive to get someone new than to keep what you have. But yeah, and I think too, especially in the tech world that I play in and others up here, having the right logos that you can point to as customers of yours is extremely important. So I have seen a big shift this year, and I expect that to continue.
That's a doozy of a question.
You're going to re-budget now, aren't you?
Yeah, whoa. I mean, for us as a 10-person company, it's there's just no option to have those things super separate. I mean, everyone's working together to grow the company. Our product teams, we do like a Monday kickoff call and a Thursday huddle, and we just go around the room and what are your goals for the week? And then Thursday it's how did you progress on the things you said you were going to do, and it creates a little bit of a forcing function across the team. You announce you're going to do something and you report back, and it's very casual and informal. Good laugh across the team. We talk about everything from a painful customer support request that came in to a new product feature that's launching. I feel like that's just kind of natural in a small company. The only other thing I would add, this kind of fits, I think, but one thing we've hired for is just this idea of growth mindset. It's just people who really believe that their attitude and effort determine their success, not just I'm good at this or not. It's more they see a problem and they say, I can figure that out, and they'll take responsibility for solving that. So that means they're flexible. They're happy to jump into different roles when needed. In particular, we have a salesperson who's in the audience here who said he wanted to learn some marketing, and he just started figuring stuff out. And the same on another one who decided he just kind of naturally started to pull together really interesting sales dashboards and analytics, and now it's just become part of his job to kind of own that. So I think if you have people that have that mindset, then a lot of those kind of siloed, when do we include who conversations are kind of moot.
So a little over a week ago, I worked at a 60-person company that had the scrappiest of scrappy marketing budgets, and the marketing team was myself and one half to one other person. This week, I work in a 1,500-person company with a 45-person marketing team with dedicated designers. So I'm like running through the candy store right now with a basket, scooping candy. I'm so happy. I don't exactly know how it's going to play out, but here's what I figured out so far. We have a big staff at headquarters. So the new company has 7 offices around the country. We have a big staff at headquarters. That's where most of the marketing team sits. But then there's a local person in each office. So I have someone locally to collaborate with, to drive local awareness of what we're doing and to really be part of this region and this mindset that we're working in, because we're really focused on having each office support clients locally. So I love that so far, that we have support back at the spaceship and a lot of local brains collaborating. So that's what I know so far.
Thanks. I kind of love the concept of treating your new your new client, if you will, once you land them, like you just hired them. Like when you start a new company, you get swag, you get a shirt, you get whatever. I've loved that, and so we've applied that at our companies that we've started. But I see that now at NetSuite, where it's almost like you're hired, and now you don't get a marketing newsletter, you get intel. You don't just get like a PO to sign, you get a welcome, and then now what? And here's what you can expect, and here's how we're going to roll that out. And it's very marketing led, and it really helps the the account management organization really serve that client, because I don't know what the statistics. I should learn how to talk today. I don't know what you might know these, but is once you land a client, we spend so much time on upfront stuff and bringing clients in, and we don't focus a lot on the service of the client once we have them. The statistic, why could I not say that word? They're shocking, the numbers, there you go, of what it is to keep those clients, and once they fall out, the cost that comes in with that rat wheel, or that hamster wheel, there you go. It's amazing, and so I've always appreciated talking like a person, as well as companies that treat their clients like that, because it's a beautiful thing. It's really fun to watch, and I've seen more of that as of late, where marketing and AMO gets really involved together.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And when we talk about wanting marketers to understand the voice of the customer, there's no better way to do that than to journey with them as a customer, not just as a lead, right? And be involved and build those relationships. I've not been watching the clock, so somebody flag me down. We have technically till 12:30. I'm not going to use every minute if we don't have a robust convo going, but I do want to turn the mic over to the crowd and see what questions you might have for our panel. So wave your hand like crazy. All right, we had this gentleman here was first. I'm going to give you a microphone. I'm going to try not to knock cameras over. It's tricky. Can we pass?
So I have a question about the role of agencies in the early stages of startups. So one of the things I routinely wrestle on is where in the business's life cycle, my businesses that I've run, do we reach an inflection point when we move from outsourced marketing to an FTE? Particularly when, with the outsourced model, I can get access to specialists, whereas when I add an FTE, a lot of times it's a generalist first. So talk to me a little bit about your experience in working with agencies, when it's a good time. Do you have experience in when the right time is to transition to FTEs? Thank you.
That's a great question. It's difficult, right? There's a lot of probably right answers to that. We started early on, right? Starting, as I think a lot of organizations do, just focus on sales, and you do kind of the bare minimum of marketing. Let's make sure we have a little SEO so someone who's out looking for us can find us and some of those things. But then right away you realize, what's going to set us up, as Jennifer pointed out, marketing takes a long time to start seeing the results you want, especially with kind of B2B demand gen marketing where, you might create, 75 pieces of content and maybe get, 80 or 90% of your traffic from 5 of those. And you don't know which 5 that is until you get them produce all 75. So to your question, I think, if you're able to supplement it initially, I think what we did is we hired Lake One. Ryan Rude's in the audience, so I'll give him a shout out here. They've been great at just helping us build that program from the start. Just get a foundation of personas and content and getting us up with marketing automation and just that foundation. And then we're kind of at 10 employees now. We're starting to shift as we bring in more of those resources in-house, but then kind of supplement with some of the things that perhaps the in-house people can't do. So maybe we don't have a lot of experience in-house in the bigger picture and the strategy and some of those things. I think that's still a really good spot for outsourcing. And as you said, the subject matter expertise in certain areas is key, and I think a good thing to outsource still. Yeah, please.
I'll just add on to that. I think the really specific inflection point is when you're ready to support a full-time employee with representation on the leadership team. So you might have an instinct to hire somebody who will do marketing tactically, but without representation on the leadership team to guide a strategy, they're going to flail, and you're going to wonder why they're not driving the results you're looking for. If you just hire somebody on the leadership team, they're not going to be as good at the tactics, probably, and you're going to wonder why you don't have the results. So I would hire both and make sure that there's a strategy guiding the tactics. Otherwise, it'll be a waste of money.
If I may weigh in on that, that question actually sparked our model for fractional CMO, because having been a sales leader and a marketing leader, I saw the tipping point. For us, it was when we were about an $8 million company growing the business that became Magnet 360. But there's a tipping point that's repeated in business growth cycles where the business starts out as sales-driven, sales-led, because you have to bring something viable to the market, figure out what that is. And then they're doing the marketing tactics, right? But we see it around the $5 million revenue mark that most businesses now have spent enough money trying tactics and are ready to understand how to knit those tactics together into a strategy and measure the impact of that with revenue. But they might not be ready to hire a senior marketing leader on a full-time basis, right? So they need that senior strategic leadership, and they still need the tactics. And the CEO is often saying, I can no longer own marketing. This is not my thing, right? So fractional leadership gives you the leader to integrate the tactics through agency partnerships and folks who are providing that expertise with the flexibility to grow into that role and define what it is your business needs.
See how I set you right up?
Thanks. Great question. I'll pay you later. All right. Who else?
Hi, thank you. Great panel. Question for you. I know a lot of you said that you have sales and marketing background, and that's something that I'm currently coming more into a marketing role from a sales background. But just for a question, if you only had one marketing metric or metric in general to measure for your marketing team, what metric would that be?
Awareness. I think if people are aware of you, it's a sales. I mean, if you had to pick one, I think it would just be awareness. I know it's brand budget, so there's no ROI to tie to that, but it's a lot easier if people have heard of us than if they haven't.
Revenue is good. We focus on marketing-driven pipeline. So once it gets handed to a salesperson, it's kind of that salesperson's responsibility. And of course, revenue is important, but we spend a lot of time just measuring our marketing-driven pipeline.
Yeah, I'd say marketing sourced opportunities first, but close second would be retention rates.
That's great. And a little bit of encouragement that I want to offer for the startups and small businesses in the room. Some of you don't even have the right data and systems in-house to even effectively measure the outcomes, right? So I would encourage you to start with measuring and habits, okay? So this week, this is how you build the marketing muscle. Like this week, I'm going to commit to having 2 coffee conversations, sales conversations. You know, my goal for the next month is to have 20 of those. Measure the activities that turn into opportunities, that turn into pipeline, that turn into converted revenue, right? If you can't start at measuring true awareness or true revenue yet, start by measuring the activities that are the disciplines that get you to the data, if that makes sense. Yeah. What else? All right, in the back of the room. Let's just throw this. meet me in the middle.
So I also have sales and marketing background experience, and what I've found is one of the big head-butting issues between sales and marketing is lead quality for the sales side, and for marketing, the fact that sales doesn't follow up on our leads. So what are your thoughts on SLAs, service level agreements, where each side makes commitments to do certain things? So sales, yes, we will follow up on all the leads you give us in a certain amount of time, but we'll also give you feedback on them. And but marketing commits to, hey, our leads are, this is what we are all going to agree on is a qualified lead to pass to sales.
Early this year, we went through a whole revamp of our lead scoring model, and it was long, it was arduous, it was painful a little bit, but it was sales and marketing in a room agreeing on what qualifies as a good lead. What are the behavioral or demographic traits of a lead that are going to, and we had someone helping us through that process, but it's amazing how those discussions have just kind of, gone away. Sure, sales will always want more. That's and we expect them to ask for more, right? But again, I think getting really very granular assumption agreement on the quantity and the quality. And there's a lot of materials out there if you're not able to hire someone to help or a consultant or whatever, but there's a lot of good materials out there to help you through that process. But it needs to be objective, because if it's not, it's going to continue to be this more emotional, subjective debate.
It's really about forming a common language, isn't it? I mean, the SLA is a formal way of doing that, but it's amazing to me how much variance there is in understanding, even in small organizations, but like what is a lead? Whether you're using like a serious decisions model and MQL language or not, but like some people believe that a lead is, we've sponsored a trade show, they gave us all the names of the people who attended, and I uploaded them in my database, and you have 300 leads, go work them. Those are not leads. That's a list import, right? A lead has been qualified through some kind of filter, and we've agreed on what's in that filter. So if your organization is still calling a name list a lead, you've got work to do between your marketing and sales organizations. And probably a ton of database cleanup to do, too, because most of that is going to be junk. So just a heads up on that. Yes?
Thank you. So my question, I know this is sales and marketing alignment, but I've worked for sales-driven organizations, I've worked for marketing-driven organizations, and I've worked for product-driven organizations. So the question is, what would be your advice to align with product?
Change the whole thing to a customer-driven organization, and they will fall into line. You just have to. That's the only way to do it.
No,
No follow?
Yeah, I think marketing has a huge responsibility to partner closely with the product team, to come up with the right positioning, messaging, nailing it. We also, I think, especially again in the tech space, we have an opportunity to sell ahead and to let, our customers are very interested in knowing what's coming, like what's on our product roadmap. And so I think it's marketing's role to, proactively grab that and own it. Maybe they're not, doing the product roadmap, but it's their job, our marketing's job, to tell the story to the sales team and to the market about, who we are and where we're going. So there needs to be a very, very tight alignment, in my opinion, with this product.
Totally.
I would add that the sales team are the ones out talking to customers constantly, customer success as well. And I think there's no better group of people who's going to be able to tell you how your customers are going to perceive your product and your enhancements and new features and really input on the roadmap. So I think a lot of times it's pretty easy for product to kind of do their thing over there, and then here's the new update, go tell everyone about it. But it's kind of like, whoa, I don't think anyone's going to like that, or it should have been done this other way. So I think use your salespeople and customer success as well as a source of product information.
For sure. I think one of the dangers that I've seen, having worked inside of a product-led organization at one point, is that product-led businesses run the danger, and even sales-led businesses run the danger of having just a what story. This is our product, this is our pricing, this is our process, this is us, this is our benefits and our solution. When marketers understand that what your brand needs is a so what story, right? Who should matter to us, who should we matter to, and how do we disrupt their thinking to help them understand that they have pain that only we can solve? That's a so what story. The what comes downstream from there, right? And so, Chris, I think it was you that said earlier, now I'm losing my train of thought on this, but you said something brilliant that tied into this. So congrats on that, something brilliant that I just lost. But really, product, sales, or marketing-led organizations, it really doesn't matter. Ultimately, it's about, are you getting a message that matters, a story that matters to the people who should matter to you and who you should matter to? And that takes it up some layers. And I've seen a lot of businesses who have a lot of structure around their product marketing, pragmatic marketing systems and things, and they even have people called product marketers, but they're people who communicate features updates often. That's dangerous if you're not connected with communication brand marketers who can wrap that in a story that's layers up from there in a so what space. So there's a lot of, I always refer to this as connective tissue. When I worked in that business, I was an interim CMO. I just got the head of product and the head of sales and the head of marketing myself together in a room once a week and said, let's build connective tissue. Let's figure out what the story is. So I think that's important.
Was it why anything before why us?
What?
Maybe? Why anything before why us?
That was what you said, yes. Like often when the product or service that we're selling, we're not competing against a direct competitor. We're competing against their status quo. We're competing against, they feel very comfortable with what they do or don't have right now, and we're something different. So we got to create disruption for them. Show them, poke them in their pain. You got to poke the pain. Yes.
Thanks. Dick Plipnick, awesome panel you guys so far today. It's Twin City Startup Week. There's a lot of startups here that maybe only have $1,000 monthly budget to spend on marketing. Let's say that they have the founder is doing full-time sales, but let's say that they have $1,000 to work with a month. Where would you recommend spending that $1,000? And I'm kind of curious which way you lean, if you lean towards paid advertising versus content, marketing, or something else. Thanks.
You're asking me my story. I want to see how other people respond.
I'll take a first stab at this. I think one of the best things to do early on is with, focus on your website content, right? You don't want to spend money to bring people to your site if your story is a mess and you can't convert any of them. So, doing things like paid advertising means that you've got some element of the bottom of the funnel figured out. And so, a little bit in SEO can go a long way just to make sure that if someone is looking for your startup or your company, that they're going to find you. Yeah, and I'll just add one marketing thing that we did that I love and think you could probably all find a way to relate it back to your businesses. For us, selling, our main selling point is youth sports tryouts. So we come in, that's the time of year, it happens once or twice a year. We help them with other things, but that's really the major pain that we solve initially. And so the problem was there's only a certain number of people out there looking for tryout software. Most people are out there Googling for an evaluation form or a template that they can download, tweak a little bit for themselves, and then print out and do it the standard way. And so what we did is actually create those forms and then run ads against those. So we're giving them what they're actually looking for, which is actually the alternative to what we have, and then we nurture them into an introduction to a better way. So if you can find, that was actually quite obvious. We figured that out really early on, and it still works. So if you can find something like that, you can do it pretty cheaply and convert at a high rate.
I would use it for case studies. So I would identify your ideal client, your ideal prospect, and as much information as you can list about that ideal prospect. And then I would understand what problems they need to solve in their business generally. And then I would write case studies to solve that problem. And I would put all $1,000 into a writer to tell that story and get that to as many people as you can.
So knowing what you do, I was going to say product or service. I know you run, you're on the service side, right? I ran a couple of service companies, so I'm not going to speak to products. But once you have these things together, number one, your site and the content on that site to be good, and then getting everything kind of tight that way and putting together case studies, right? Your target account list should be people that you have had success with in the past, whether at that current company or at a previous company, so that you can leverage that experience. Because no one can take that away. Whether or not you've closed 3M, it doesn't matter. You closed 3M and served them in the past. That's now your logo, right? But if for $1,000, what we ended up doing, this is literally what we did with Coffee and Closers, is once we realized we had something here and it wasn't just a fun hobby, we made a commitment to spend under $1,000. And what we wanted to do is once we had our target account list, our target accounts, we'll say, we built a soul. We built an event with a soul that would attract those people to come. That was when we were doing the fractional VP of sales thing. And those people would come, and it would be an authentic experience, and then we got to know them that way. Because I think in professional services, you're selling yourself, right? In a product company, it's either I need this and I like it, or I don't. You can argue that you can convince someone, strong arm them into buying, but that's not real sales today. But with professional services, they have to trust you and they have to get to know you, and you can easily put on an event like Coffee and Closers for under $1,000. If you want to know how, I'll show you the way.
He's marketing to you right now.
I agree with everything these folks shared. I always say start with story. One of my former bosses had what I think is one of the best quotes ever, and I see this every day with our clients. I shouldn't be surprised anymore at how much money small, mid-sized businesses throw at the tactics without a strategy or story behind it, but they do. And so this former boss of mine said, all the MarTech sophistication in the world, if you implement this big MarTech stack and all the tactics on top of a bad story or a weak story, you're just going to make that story suck faster to more people. Yeah, that's true. Right? You have to start with story. And sometimes the clients we work with, we start there. And sometimes they feel like, I just want to get the low-hanging fruit and the at-bats, just get this campaign launched. It's like, no, we got to lock this story in. The story with the voice of customer insights, with alignment between sales and marketing, with understanding where your white space is to grow and what makes your brand unique and why, the so what. What's the so what to the people who should matter? That is the anchor for everything you do out from that. And the what, the mix of it, what's the right ingredient to spend the next dollar on is going to depend on what you're trying to build. If you're building a regional services brand, then it's probably relationships regionally. If you're building a national product, it's probably to market some of that product more broadly. So the mix is less important than the message with your initial dollars. Yeah. All right, maybe one more question, and then because I know we're sales and marketers and we covet connection and communication, I'm going to free us up for some networking time. But one more question, and then I'll wrap up with the panel. Does that sound fair? Who's got the fastest hand in the room? They're like, you said networking. We're shutting up now. And lunch. Oh, there it is. There it is. You got it? All right.
All right, so I'll try to make this a quicker question to answer. But so I actually work in a Smarketing role in sales enablement and sales ops. So you're kind of talking about maybe you don't like to do the sales ops as much, but when you're thinking, I have to live in a role where I'm responding to both marketing and sales. And when the priorities, or at least top priorities, are different, how do you address those? Do you try to go to addressing each one of those top priorities first and then finding some commonalities, or do you like to address the ones where you can make an impact with both groups and then move on to more higher priorities for each individual group? And advice in addressing those.
Sounds like a bigger company problem to me. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it just comes with bringing people in early on so they understand where those priorities are coming from, and then from there, I think it's all about just trying to be objective about what's going to be best for the business. I mean, and that's why it's great to have your sales and marketing team so close, is because then it's not, this is my project, that's your project. It's what's the business's project. So that's how I would look at it.
Well, yeah, and and Kevin's thing too, I'm going to kind of, the SQL and MQL, that is just a constant battle. It is just constant, right? And it's both sides arguing, but what I've seen successful is when you come up with a joint marketing plan and you both sign off on it, and it has little check boxes next to that, and then when you go to happy hour, you go to whatever, you review said document, and there is no getting around it. Do you know what I mean? We sign, like, your little initials or whatever the hell, give it a Google Doc so everyone can execute it, but then there's no you did this or I did that or whatever, the blaming that exists. Yeah. If it's a joint marketing plan and you agreed to it and I agreed to it, then now it's our problem. So if there's not a checkbox there, or we're down in our forecast or whatever, it's now our problem, and we now need to fix that collectively. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only thing I would add that is, I know in a larger business, the cadences for connecting with your peers to have common sense discussions about what gets prioritized might not be there. They might not just be in place already. But I think you can have a growth mindset and a Smarketing collaboration mindset, whatever size or type of organization you're in, and you can be the person that fosters that alignment and connective tissue, even if that means that you spearhead a happy hour every 2 weeks to say, I've collected all the new requests that have come in, and together we're going to organize, discuss what has the biggest impact of the business, vote it up, everybody pick your top 3, that's what we're going to work on in this next chunk of time, right? So I would just, if the connective opportunities don't exist in your business that drive the alignment, you can create that and be the voice of, I'd encourage you, be the voice of reason to say, our resources are limited. Let's agree together on what we will set on the back burner for now so we can prioritize what has highest impact for the whole. So, all right, last question for the panel. I'll just move down the ranks and then we will wrap and celebrate. My last question is, we are in, for most of us, the fourth quarter of our fiscal year. We're pushing to a finish line, right? We're leaning into 2020. So if I'm in the room and I'm a leader of a small or growing business and I really would like to set the stage for 2020 for stronger collaboration between sales and marketing team members, what advice would you give me? What is 1 or 2 actionable things I can walk out of here and start thinking about as I plan for next year?
I would suggest your 2020 planning, if it hasn't started already, it should. Because what happens, and I've seen it where we've had the plan done way in advance, we've agreed on lead targets. I've seen it where it wasn't done until January 31st. And you always feel behind. It's just, and everyone's panicked, and that's not a good way to operate. So if you haven't started your 2020 and your discussions, do that now and make a commitment that you'll have it done, if possible, by December 1st. So that you can build the plan around it, right? Because setting the targets is really, it's a math exercise and it's negotiation. But what's really important is that you've got a plan that there's confidence in that, yes, that can get us there. So it takes time. Don't underestimate how much time it takes, and you should put a lot of thought into that. But at the same time, like Jennifer said, you're closing out Q4, so there's a balance on kind of the day-to-day and working that as well. But just we just set our Q4 priorities, and one was to have our plan done by December 1st, because last year we were behind, and it's just not a good position to be in.
Build cross-training into your plan, meaning for your sales team, your marketing team, find ways to educate each other. One thing we did was send a couple of our salespeople to Digital Summit so they could get a taste of marketing. They might have been the only salespeople there, which I think is unfortunate. It's not very expensive, 1.5 days out of work, and they come out back with tons of ideas that apply to the whole business. One thing we've also joked about that I plan on implementing, although haven't yet, would be part of our onboarding for new marketing people would actually be to give a demo of the product to the sales team. So do a little role playing, let that salesperson ask some tough questions and try to push back on price and all those things that they deal with. Good for some laughs and some relationship building there. It's not that they're going to nail it, they're going to fail, and that's kind of the point. So try to find things like that, build them into your plan.
Humiliate marketing, that's the takeaway.
Yes.
I'll try to give advice that's applicable to multiple business sizes. At this time of year, what I'm always focused on is to reflect on what my customers' needs are, what their challenges are, what I think they're going to be struggling with next year, given what I understand about their business, and what I can do to help solve those problems. And the mechanics of the plan all need to fall into place, but if you're not completely focused on what your customer's problem is and how you can uniquely solve it, none of that planning will help you close those deals.
I would say do a fake announcement or an announcement to say there's a mandatory retreat, offsite, a happy hour, whatever. That's obviously fun. But what you do is you task the two sides to collectively, for the sales folks and the marketing folks, to pull together this last year's deals. And then together put together kind of a trend to say, wow, we're really killing it in this sector. We suck in this sector. We close zero, And so for your next year's plan, you're actually targeting. I hate lowest hanging fruit. I know you hate that, but I'm going to say it. Lowest hanging fruit. You can put together places that you've had success, and then collectively together to put together that joint marketing plan to say, okay, here's where we're going to target. Here's some messaging that's worked, and basically just relive the past that's already worked and roll that out in full force the next year. But I would definitely put those people together, those groups together, to really execute or to piece that plan together, to apply tasks to one side or the other, and then hold each other accountable, and then build that infinite team. And that's what I would do. We're in Q2, but.
Well, thank you to the panelists. Can you help me appreciate them with a round of applause? And thank you all for being an awesome audience. This room tends to get really chattery in the back, and you guys were like so engaged. So thank you. Thank you for coming out. Look at the sun is out. What a gorgeous fall day. Don't run off too fast. Meet somebody here. That's what this is all about. Exchange some ideas. Link in. All right. Go on with blessings. Thanks for coming out.